Hello and welcome to the class, the workshop, the Zentangle workshop that I'm doing to support Ron's Place. So please let me just explain a little bit about Ron's Place. I'd like to share my screen and just talk for a couple of minutes. I'll try not to talk for too long because we are going to draw. But Ron's Place is a house in between Birkenhead and Oxton, which is a little town near where I live on the Wirral. Can you all see that this is like a hallway here? Okay, and Ron lived here. Ron died a little while ago, and when his family went in to his rented house, they discovered it was just a huge art. He turned it into a complete art space. And everywhere you look, it is just full of paintings that he's done. He's got different themes in different rooms. This is looking through to the kitchen. But this is the fireplace. And he used to wheel bags of cement into the house in a pram, in a child's pram, in order to make the fire. It is so solid. I can't tell you. I've been here and I've touched all of these things. I've looked at the weird and wonderful things that are lying around. It's absolutely incredible. You can see here we've got a strange figure reclining against the wall. There's every single surface is full of things that he's painted, started to sculpt, create, or whatever. This is the bathroom. There's fish everywhere. I don't think the man looked after himself terribly well. There is no bedroom. There is no place where he slept. No idea how he managed to survive here. But he did. He went out and was known as a very eccentric character in and around the town. And he would go out in different costumes. This is actually inside the bathroom. I looked inside this rather scruffy looking cupboard here, and there's medicines and things from 40, 50 years ago. Absolutely incredible place. This is the Georgian room. So these are all paintings on the wall. It's just that he just filled every corner with what he enjoyed doing. And it was really amazing. The floors have all been painted. That's the ceiling in one of the rooms. How he did it, we don't know. That's all the ceiling work. Some are more interesting than others. This is his kitchen, and this is his Roman altar. And I have to say, of all the works, this is the one that really pulled me in. And so what we're doing today is a tile that I've based on my impressions of some of the things that I've seen in his house. He painted all the floor. He had a little template that he'd used to get the squares. I think it looks really lovely all lit up. That's and apparently he used to cook pancakes on a pan inside the fireplace. So yes, they are still working fireplaces. There's a lion and a minotaur. The lion was fabulous. I loved the lion's mouth, and that's his little pancake cooker inside the lion's mouth. And so the idea was to try and raise some money to save the place. Okay. And yet the housing company that owned the place wanted to relet it. It's in a very nice area, and it was something that they couldn't maintain it. And they ran up against a big problem because they were running out of time. So the charity they set up was running out of time and wasn't getting anywhere near the money that was needed to buy the place. And so in the end, it went for auction, and it went to auction on the 1st of March this year. It's had national publicity. It's gone on national television, national radio. And there is people that have found out about this place across the globe. So the website, which is called Ron's Place, has got more about the story. I woke up on Thursday, maybe the 2nd of March. So it was after the auction. I put my radio on, and just as I put the radio on, there was an article about Ron's Place, how there had been an anonymous donor who had paid enough money to buy the house, and had given it to the charity. I was like, oh my goodness me. So Ron's place was saved. The house has been purchased in the name of the charity. So what we're doing now is, the idea was always to turn it into a community arts place, to work with people that needed space to do art, that maybe needed help, running courses with people with drug and alcohol problems, but also the sort of thing that I've started doing. I've started working with Age UK in an area of the Wirral. So I go and I teach at Age UK every other week. I've got a fabulous group there, but we could open that up and do it actually in Ron's place once it was restored and safe. It's not safe at the moment, it's falling down. So it was really very nearly lost, because the people, yeah, I can say this, in the charity, the people that were working towards saving it were not business people. They were not people who had real, they all knew what they wanted to do with it once it was saved. But we haven't quite got there yet. So now all the fundraising is to try and save, not save Ron's place, but to turn Ron's place into a community arts centre. And there are some fabulous ideas. Okay. I got involved because it was put on Facebook, and I went to a couple of meetings. I'm working with somebody that does a lot of work with the charity, and she's the one who organised this session. But I really felt that his place resonated with me, and some of his images were very Zentangly, and so that's why I got involved and why I think it's a really nice project. And so from now on, we're going to be doing the Zentangle. I think most of the people who are joining me today have done some Zentangle, but maybe not everybody. So if I go at a slightly slower pace, for those of you who know how to do Zentangle, please bear with me, because you never know. It's always exciting to get somebody new to join us in our Zentangle passion. So I'm just going to change onto my camera. And the idea today is that I will be drawing in this square. So this square is about 9 centimeters square, which in inches is just over 3.5 inches. Okay, so usually we can use a Zentangle tile, but if you don't have a Zentangle tile, then you can just draw a square on your paper, and we'll use that. I'm going to be doing it in white. If you're a tangler and you would like to do it on tan, it has a little bit more oomph. You can add a little bit more highlights with white pencil. So please decide which you prefer, to use the white or the tan tile. Either one. This is the shape that we're going to be doing today. I did prepare another one. It's a little more complicated to do. But this is done on a tan tile. You can see I felt that some of the fragments that we could use make a lovely part of the fireplace vibe that I picked up. This here as well was something over the fireplace that I quite liked, and I quite liked including the tiles, the patterns that we use. Here is Knightsbridge. So I'm going to be using similar things, but this is the tile that we're going to draw today. Okay, so just for the benefit of anybody who hasn't done Zentangle before, I'm going to be using a very fine pen, a Micron 01. I'm going to be using a pencil, which is a 2B, so quite a soft pencil. We blend the pencil with a little tortillon or blending stump, but if you don't have that, you can use your little finger or maybe an earbud. Okay, so let's make a start. I'm going to be using these patterns, and I will explain them as I go through. I'm going to be using Shattuck, which is an original Zentangle HQ tangle, Golven by Mariette, Knightsbridge, another original one, Tipple, an original one, and Curl. And I'll just show you where I saw the pattern Curl, except I can't, it's lost from my screen. But never mind, I did see a lot of Curl in there, but I won't go back and show that now. I'll show you how to draw it. So in Zentangle, usually what we do to start with, we create a string. I'm not going to do a border and the 4 dots because I'm hoping that we can get some tiles to put together to make a mosaic. So with your pencil, let's just mark the center point of each of our lines. So that's the center of this one. That's more or less the center of this one. More or less the center of this one. I'm doing this all by eye. Okay, there are no mistakes in Zentangle, which is really good. And we don't need to be perfect or even aim to be perfect. What I am going to do, though, is imagine that I'm drawing a circle. And what I want to do is I want to create a quarter circle across each of these edges. I'll just show you the one that we're going to do. And very often what I do is I get my hand to imagine I'm drawing a complete circle, with this being the center point. So just doing that, okay, and I'm doing it in pencil. I'm doing it very, very lightly. It's going to come up this way and just join there. It's more or less a quarter circle. Now I find drawing it that way is really, really the easiest way for me to do it. So what I do is I'm going to turn my book. You won't see this because I've gone off camera. I'll just lift it up. So instead, and you just turn your tile if you're using a tile, but move your book, move your paper so that you can get that same easy feel to just draw the next one across there. Okay. It doesn't matter if they're not quite perfect. Just draw the next one here. Just imagine that's going to be a quarter circle and just draw across to there. And then the last one, just imagine a quarter circle, drawing up and across to there. Okay, and I think my first one was probably just a little bit big, so I'm just going to go back in and just make that a little bit neater. Just felt a little bit big. I am going to use my eraser just to take that line off. You don't have to, but you can just tidy it up until you're happy that you've got these little quarter circles across each of the corners. And that's going to be our string for today. Not perfect, but perfectly okay. I'm not even going to say if you are a perfectionist, you can find another way of doing this, but I am very far from a perfectionist, so I don't worry too much. I'm going to suggest that while we're using our pencil, that we add just another line, and that is another circle. So I'm just going to take the midpoint of here and here, and the midpoint of here and here, and just again, just drawing another little quarter circle. It should be just following the same shape as that. And I'm going to do that in all 4 of my quarter circles here. So just marking just makes it easier to know where you're aiming for. So I'll just mark them first. And because I find it easier, I'm just going to turn my book because that my hand just goes more easily in this direction. Another one there. Turn it again. Another one there. And then another one here. It's always a good idea to try and imagine if you did a complete circle, would that be about a quarter? There's sometimes a tendency just to flatten those curves a little bit. Don't be afraid to. Just make sure it looks as good as you can get it. And although there were no actual clocks that I remember that he'd drawn in the house, I would like to just put a little circle in the center. I'm not going to touch the edges. I'm just going to draw myself a freehand circle here. And this is also just a little nod to my own feelings that I got when I went into the house. It just, you know, this is the tile that I've created based on the vibes that I got when I was in Ron's house. And I was very lucky to be able to go in and have a look around. And it made quite an impression on me, I have to say. Oh, it must be so lovely to sit with just a cat draped around your shoulders like that. It's so sweet. Although I'm just getting slightly warm in my studio here because the day has been lovely and warm here. Okay. Everybody all right? Just give me a thumbs up when you're all sorted. Okay. So that's 3 thumbs up for our online people. And I'm going to keep moving on. And we're going to start doing some of the patterns. To start off with, though, I'm going to use my fine pen. If you don't have a Micron 01 or you don't have a really fine pen, just use any black pen. And we do draw directly in pen in Zentangle because there are no mistakes. And what we're going to do first is actually, I don't want to use that one, that's too flat. I'll just get myself another pen. What we will do is we're going to now just ink over all of these pencil lines that we've done. Just so we've got these nice. And again, if you find it easier to turn your book round as you're going, then please do. Make sure that when you're drawing Zentangle, your hand and your arm always feels in the most comfortable position for you. That's my first line, and I just do this while I'm here. Get both of those done. And I'll just turn and do the same for all of my lines. If I don't draw exactly on top, it doesn't matter. I just went a little flat. Never mind. There we go. And then I will also draw around my circle in the middle. Now, sometimes if you really feel you want to have that a nice round circle, then draw around something. You know, it's very easy just to find a coin, or she says very easy. It's not so easy in here. I haven't got anything just the right size. But, oh, look, that'll do. So I'm just going to draw around something. So I've got a nice, good circle to follow. It's not cheating, honestly. But it is sometimes difficult to get a completely round circle. Okay. I wasn't too far. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a few auras. And an aura in Zentangle is just where you follow a line that you've already drawn. And I'm going to start with doing an aura inside my circle here. If you've got quite a big circle, you can do it inside. If you've got a small one, you can add it on the outside. And just for reference, I've done this one's got quite a big circle, and this one's quite a small circle. Okay, and here circle is pushing it a little bit. It's neither in the center nor very round, but never mind. It gives you the effect that there is something round in the center. I'm just going to go inside this one. And if you go very, very, very slowly, just really breathe and think very carefully as you're going around, you will find that you can get it fairly close and fairly regular. Look a bit too soon, but just going around this one as well. Just so I've got a nice, strong, defined line. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're actually going to do an aura following each of these other lines. So what I'm going to do is as close as I can to this little line here. So I'm going to go close to the nearest lines, but this one I'm going to make a little wider. Not too wide, but just a little wider. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same over here with this one. So close, 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 close. And this one just a little wider. And just continue to do all four. Okay, and my last one. Okay. And there we are. And now we can start doing some tangling. Let's start with the center. What I'm also going to say to my Zentangle friends, that you know that it really does not matter what we put inside these. When we put all of these together, it will look fabulous and it will make a great mosaic, simply because these will join up with another tile like this and start to make a pattern and a meta pattern within here. So this will also follow around. So you have these, you create these circles which look absolutely fabulous all together. So what I was going to say is, if you have some ideas as to what you would like to fill these with, please feel free. What would be nice is if we could maintain 2 Knightsbridge and 2 Shattuck in these centre bits. But the rest, if you feel inspired to do something else, please feel free. I've tried to keep these fairly simple in case anybody wasn't familiar with Zentangle. But let's just go for it. I am going to suggest that I'm going to do a clock in the center. And this is based very much on my steampunk class where we did clocks. If anybody did the steampunk class, I'm just going to draw a circle with a circle, a dot with a circle around, and another circle around that. Okay. And partly because it was in the Roman kitchen, I'm going to just put a few Roman numerals. And so I'm going to put an X, 1 for 12 o'clock. You can fill them all in if you wish. It just depends how fine your pen is. So it's 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I have to remember 9 o'clock is 1X. Oh, I've got plenty of space. I'm going to put the other numbers in as well. So I'm just going to put a 1 and a 2 and a 1V and a V. And I have to say this out loud or I'll do it wrong. V1, 1 and V1, 1, 1. X and X1 and X2. So my 12 o'clock slightly off, but never mind. And again, if you've done my class, you'll know I always have my clock saying 3 o'clock. I don't know why. Strange, but I always do. So that is the clock in the center. It somehow feels right, having been in Ron's house, to have a clock with Roman numerals. And then I'm just going to do a pattern which is called curl. And I'm going to fill all of this section here with the pattern curl, because actually Ron had done something in plaster and he'd done this pattern. It was definitely curl. So if you're not familiar with it, I'll just do a little example of the pattern curl here. Very, very simple. So start off with a little curl. And then what we're going to do is, where it divides off into one direction, take it off and divide it and go in the opposite direction. And then each one you're going to do a repetition. Okay, so every time it divides off, you can go in the opposite direction. Same here. This one can come up and round this way. This one can come up and round this way. And this just goes on. And you don't have to make them all the same. You can do some really big, because this is now going to change direction when it comes off the next one. Or you can just make them little ones. Okay, so just do a little bit of experimentation if you haven't done this tangle before. It's a lovely one to fill some space, and just, it's very hard to stop. Because you can even add extra ones on as well. So this one can come this way, and this one can come this way. So honestly, the most difficult thing about this tangle is being able to stop. Okay, and it's a really super one. We're going to do this pattern inside this center space here. And usually I start somewhere, anyway, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter if it disappears behind somewhere, and this one's going to come up this way. Can't see all of it because it's quite narrow down here, but I'm just going to give the impression that the pattern's there, and then I'm going to start branching, changing direction from time to time, adding some bigger ones and some smaller ones. And sometimes if it disappears, that's okay. Just going to go behind there, and maybe you can just see the extra little bit of curl there. And just fill this with this lovely, 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 elegant pattern. Okay, and even if it disappears off the edge, it's nice to give the impression that it is all there, and it's just working its way around and filling all the space. When you get into these little pointy edges, just indicate that it's still happening, you just can't see all of it. That's really lovely one to keep doing. And because we're in this contained space, at some point we will have to stop when you've filled all of it. And even then you might go back and think, oh, I could just do another one here. Or is that just me? And this pattern is one that Lou Marie Laker came up with and named. And whilst it's not exactly a Roman pattern, as I say, I did see it in Ron's house. It has more of a French feel to it, Versailles. Okay, I think I might be, as I say, my difficulty is stopping, but I think that I've got that pretty well filled in now. Just always just go back and double check. You might want to just put another little one in somewhere. How's everybody doing on that? Good one? It's a sweet one. Okay. Okay, can we move on? Yes, excellent. Okay, so the next pattern that we're going to do is, I've forgotten to write down her full name, and I forgot to write down that we were going to do this, but I will just double check that. You remember that glue pot that I drew around? I forgot to put the lid back on. It's just dribbled out onto my table, but never mind. Okay, so the next pattern we're going to do is a pattern called EPAW, which is, no, it's spelled with an E, EPAW with an E, EPAW. It's rope backwards, and it's by Yasmina, and I've forgotten her surname. She's a Spanish tangler, and I know her quite well. But we're actually just going to do this in the space that we've got here. If I just show you how it would go between two lines, you just do a very, very little S shape or a backward S shape. Join those together and another one. Join those together and another one. Join those together and another one. And so on. Just keep adding another one, always just touching. So if you were to do this without the lines, and you do it with an S, it's an S and an S and an S. Okay, so it builds up a rope effect like this, but if you do it along two lines, it builds it up quicker and it's less precarious. So I'm just going to add these in here, and I always do a backward S. I don't know why, just a little backward S, just along the little aurad lines that we did to begin with. And if you just draw along the line as well, it just emphasizes that line, just makes it a little bit more visible, curling round. And it just makes that look like a rope effect. And again, this is one of the effects that Ron does on his fireplace. And I did it with cement. Just coming back onto here. And I'm going to do this around all four. So just take your time, fill those in. Put your paper in the most comfortable position for you. I'm trying to get the most comfortable position where you can actually see what I'm doing. And then just keep filling those in. And this repetition is what makes Zentangle so wonderfully relaxing and mindful. Don't need to make each line absolutely perfect, but just put all your attention onto each line as you move through the pattern. And you don't need to worry about what it's going to look like at the end. It's this concentration on each line. And it gives you a bit of zen. And we all need a bit of zen these days. Okay. Okay. Everybody okay? Good. The next pattern I'm going to do is Knightsbridge. And I'm quite sure everybody who has ever done any Zentangle before will know that Knightsbridge is literally black and white squares, like a chessboard. So one black one, leave one, but actually the easiest way to do it is to do the next one and join them at the corners. It just really helps to think about them joining at the corners like this. It's amazing how easy it is to make a mistake, even if it's just black and white squares, believe me. Anybody who's done any teaching will also know that you say, just going to do some black and white squares, and you'll always find somebody who says, oh, I've done it wrong. There are no mistakes, but it is easiest just to join them together at the points of the corners, that way. If you're drawing a pattern that disappears behind something else or appears and disappears, you can always find out how to get the effect. So that pattern is called Knightsbridge. And we're going to put that in 2 of our corners. Okay, and this is where if you want to just do it black and white, you can just do it black and white. If you want to use color, just choose a color, and instead of doing black, do it with a color. I think I'm going to do mine in black and white. I'm going to just do everything black and white for now. Maybe add some color later on. So what I'm going to make it easy for myself, I'm going to divide this quarter circle from the point to the center with just a straight line. And then I'm going to divide it from the point to the center of that space and from the point to the center of this space. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some little squares in there, and I'm just going to divide this with two curved lines that follow this. So one there and one there. If you've got more space or you want, you can add another one. Just depends how many you feel you need to divide it up into the right sort of size. Okay, and then I'm going to do the opposite corner as well. I don't need to turn my book because I can see I'm going from midpoint to midpoint, and from midpoint that way, and this one more or less midpoint. And then I'm going to do one curve, two curves, and possibly three curves. So make your decision whether you want to make this black and white or you want to make this in colour. If you feel you've got one space, just add another line in, just so that you keep your squares nice and similar. Decisions. Yeah, I'll do mine in colour. I'll do mine in colour simply because I like the coloured floor in Ron's place. I'm going to use purple. If you're using black and white, just colour one square in black and one square and leave the others white. And you can use any coloured pencils or watercolour. And you can use different coloured pens as well if you prefer. So just joining them at the points. And at the point. At the point. And even if you're using your black pen to fill in, just enjoy the process of filling in blocks of colour or blocks of ink. It is also a relaxing process. Okay, that's my one purple side. Getting right up to the line and just enjoying filling this in as completely and thoroughly as I can. And I do keep turning the pencil around in my hand, the same as when I'm using a pen. It just makes sure I don't get a flat point. And I don't make the pencil go down flat just in one place. It just helps me get into the pointy bits. Okay. Okay, I'm going to, don't worry about this bit if you're following me online just now. I'm just going to demonstrate the drawing of Shattuck, which I am pretty sure most of you will know, but I'm going to do it for anybody watching online who doesn't. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate the tangle Shattuck, which is an original Zentangle pattern. And what we'll do is draw two fine lines then another 2 fine lines with a bigger gap between them. And then let's just do another 2 fine lines. And one more. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3 spaces that are slightly bigger between those fine lines. We can do it with straight lines. So you can start to fill in the spaces like this. So just draw a line from one point to higher up and then fill in with little lines behind it. You can then do one in the opposite direction and fill in the little lines behind it. If that works for you, do it that way. What I prefer to do is I prefer to build it up. It doesn't matter how many lines you draw, you just keep going until you reach the point of that one and then go in the opposite direction. The effect is the same. Okay, and just finish that off up there. And you do the same in the next one. And you can do it so that it's going in alternate directions. So you can do this time, you can do your line up to here and then fill in the lines behind. You can make them match or you don't need to bother. Okay, so this is going this way. I just always find it a little more confusing to do it this way. So I prefer to go and build it up this way. I can stop there because I've touched and then just go in the opposite direction. And you can do this also with curved lines. So I'll do the first one this way. So you can do a curve, fill in your curves, and then do curves in the opposite direction. So have a little practice and decide which you prefer, with the curves or with the straight lines. And that pattern is called shattuck. Not always pronounced like that, but I am English. Okay, and we're going to put that pattern in the other 2 spaces. Okay, and I will make a start on that. Please just join in whenever. And I'm going to turn my tile so that again I'm working with it straight here. And I'm going to do my first 2. Is everybody okay if I just keep going? Yes, you know what I'm doing. So I'm going to do the 2 fine lines in the center here. I'm going to leave a space and do another 2. I'm going to do them straight. They're not angled in towards the center. I'm doing them straight. It makes quite an interesting effect in the mosaic when you do them straight rather than angling them in, as we did with Knightsbridge. Again, here, 2 straight lines in the center, and then just equidistant from the center, 2 more straight lines. If you find you've got an extra little bit of space, you can add another line in there. It gives you something to work towards. And then I'll just fill these in. Easiest way when you're working in this small space is to literally say, okay, that's going to be my first section. I'm just going to fill that in like this. And then my next section is going to be at an angle to that. I've left a little gap in one of my lines here because that adds a little sparkle. You'll see the effect when I do the next one. Leave a little gap and just keep filling those lines in. Now I'm going to go in the opposite direction. It's just the easiest way to do these first ones. I'm leaving that little gap. Not trying to match them up. You really won't notice them. It's not necessary at this stage. You can if you want, but I don't always. Not when it's so small. Okay, and that little tiny gap just adds what we call a bit of sparkle, which is really cool. Here, if you can't see all of the line, you can just imagine where it might stop, and you can just start again before it gets to the end, because it's disappearing. So you just imagine it would still go on down there. Okay, and that's filled in my shattuck at one side. I'm going to turn it around and do the other side. Again, I find it easiest to do the line this way and fill in here. And then continue in the opposite direction for this one. And here, I'm just going to draw a line down there. It's going to disappear away as if those lines continued. Then coming this way. And then the opposite direction. And I'm simply not worrying about whether these line up with the other ones or not, because I'm just concentrating on the lines that I'm currently drawing. Here, I'm going to imagine that I have room for that many, and then it's going to go in the other direction. You just have to use your imagination as we're getting into these smaller spaces. That's okay. Or you can give yourself a line to work towards and work from that back this way. There we go. So I've filled both of those in on mine. I will add a bit of colour to those later on, but that pattern is called Shattuck and is a fabulous pattern. It's, I'll probably say it's one of my favourites. Okay. Anybody need a little more time? Shall I just wait another minute? I'm just going to open my door, actually. Otherwise, I may pass out from the heat. You'll probably hear the seagulls then, because I'm on the Wirral and I'm near the sea. You might just be able to hear the seagulls. Okay. Shall we go on? Yes? Excellent. Okay, so the next pattern that I'm going to do is one called Golven, but I'm going to do a fairly minimal version of Golven. I will just draw it here so that you know. It's by Mariette, somebody who, her name isn't on the list, but it's Mariette. And Golven usually goes between two lines. It's a really, really lovely pattern. You can add a little aura for each of these lines as well. Just sets it off really nicely. And then we're going to do just some zigzags, some V up and down. And that is the first part of Golven. And then what we do inside, we're going to do an aura of each triangle. So in other words, you're just going to follow that. I'm going to do the top ones first. I'm just doing a close aura next to that line. And then I'm going to do one on the inside or the downside as well. So I'm just going in and doing an aura against each of those lines. So you have sort of like two spaces here. And then we're not going to do this on this particular pattern. I don't know why not, but we're not. What the actual pattern does inside here is got some curved lines that just curve downwards like this on the triangles that point upwards. So your triangle goes up, your curves go down. If your triangles go down, then your curves go upwards. And apparently, if I could remember which country Mariette came from, I can't remember which country she comes from. Could be Danish, could be Norwegian, it could be some Scandinavian-ish sort of base. This golven is the word for waves. So you see, you get this lovely wavy effect. So this is the pattern golven. We're going to do this pattern, but we're not going to put the wave effect in it, okay? Because I didn't get that vibe from Ron's place. So I'm not going to put it in. What I am going to do though, I'm just going to add another very tiny aura. I'm going to put that above my, I'm going to do it above my Knightsbridge. So in these two spaces, I'm going to do a part of golven. If you want to do it with the wave as well, you can do, it could look really nice, but I'm just going to add another little aura, very, very close. Here. And the other one is going to be here. Oh, it's very difficult for me to draw at that angle. Draw this way. I'm much more comfortable following it here. Make sure that you always put your book, your paper, or your tile in the place where it's most comfortable. Oops. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my V's here. So I'm going to imagine this is my first line coming down here. My second one's going to come up here. It doesn't have to be perfect or spread out in any particular way. There, I've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. That's bigger in the center. It doesn't matter. Okay. And then I'm going to do my extra aura inside there. And extra aura inside there. And the same here, that's going to go up. If that's there, it's going to go up as if that's there. And here's where I'm thinking, why didn't I do the whole of golden? Probably because I didn't see it at Ron's. What I've done here is I've added a lot of little fine lines inside my golden shapes. I'll show you again here. But if you quite like the idea of doing it with the waves, and the more I look at it, I'm going to do mine with the waves this time. So when the triangles go up, my curves come down. Imagining that I could see another one down there and here as well. You see, if I'd been able to tell Ron that he could have added this curve and he could have added a lot more Zentangle into his art in his house, and I'm sure he'd have loved it. This time we're going to go up. And this one as well. Okay, it's a really lovely pattern, and I'm going to turn it around and do the other side as well. So imagining this is my first line here, and the second line up. And add the aura inside. And then I'm going to fill those in with my waves. So if the pint goes up, the waves go down, the curves go down. I only repeat this because when I first started doing Zentangle, I didn't used to notice which direction things went in, and then I could never work out why mine didn't look right or as good. And then I realized that when they went that way, these went this way. Very good. Everybody okay? Yeah. Excellent. Yes. I got the thumb there. And the final pattern that we're going to do in this space hasn't really got a name, but I like to think of them as individual fragments. So again, tanglers, think fragments. You could put almost anything inside them. Here I've got tipple, little lines, something that I saw on Ron's fireplace. We could do anything. And I'm just going to do a combination of tipple and little fine lines in mine. Okay, so when everybody's ready, I'm just going to add yet another little aura. Just helps each of these sections stand out on their own a little bit more. So an aura around there. And let's see if I can do this. An aura. Definitely not as comfortable, but I can do it around there. And again, I'll just show you this one again, which was much more like the fireplace itself. The shapes were not regular squares. They were quite, you know, he squished them in however he could get them in. What I've done on this one is I've done them just following the curve around. And I'll just show you how I'm going to do that. But please feel free to add any sort of extra detail here that you want. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to add 3 little squares, and I'm going to do them roughly 1 in the middle here, 1 to the edge here, and 1 to the edge here. And this is the best way to do it. And then underneath, I'm going to add a slightly smaller line because I'm following the curve round, like this, not worrying about these being precise size. And then I'm just going to join these up, and you can again make them rounded, not too perfect, not too square, if you know what I mean, because he did make these obviously by hand out of cement and carved the holes out. And then we're going to add inside each of these squares, we're going to add a little aura around, just follow it inside, following the shape more or less. It makes them look more interesting if they're not too perfect. I'm just going to curve some of my corners and not try and make them too rigid. And then to just give them the sense that they are carved in there, I'm going to draw a line to between each corner, even if they're not very pointy corners, just adding that little architectural feature on your wibbly wobbly squares. And what I will do is I'm going to fill the center one with little fine lines, and I'm just going to leave a few of those little gaps in there. I find it easier to do half at a time. Just fill that in with little fine lines. And the other two I'm going to fill in with the pattern tipple, which, if you're a tangler, you will know are a series of circles that all touch each other, but that are all different sizes. Now, squish them in as tight as you possibly can, varying the sizes. Maybe some of them are quite big and you can't see all of them. It's really important that they're really squished in together. So you almost have no spaces between them. And if you do have spaces between them, you can ink those in with your pen. I like to think I don't have spaces between mine. Yeah. And then I'm going to repeat that at the other side. And just to make it simple, I'm going to do it exactly the same. So I'm going to add my middle line here, another line here, and my third line here. Then just underneath and underneath. Just join these up. Again, not too square. I really like the loose look of these. And then an aura inside. And joining those up at the corners. And I shall fill. So you can fill them with almost any. Let's do something different here. I'm going to do a line in with a dot at the end, which is one of the fragments. And what else did I do? Oh yes, and the other one, I'm going to take a V in and another V in, and another V in, and then just aura that one. It was a bit difficult to see, but he had a pattern that was very similar to that. Okay, I'll just do it again here. A V in, a V in, a V in, V in with a little aura inside there. And just to give that a little bit more oomph, I'm just going to fill that little triangle with some little lines. Okay, that didn't take long. And that is the line work done. what it's calling out to me is to fill in some of the golden waves with ink, but maybe I'll just add a little bit of colour if we have time. It's amazing how quickly the time goes. But please feel free, if you're a seasoned tangler, I'm not going to use any more purple, but I'm going to add some yellow to this space. Okay, if you don't have any colours, don't worry about it. I'm going to add a little bit of shading before I finish. So I'm just going to add this colour. If you're joining me live, feel free to add colour or just add shading. If you're joining me on the recording, then probably it's easier to do the colour first before you do anything else. And we will add just a little bit of pencil shading as well on top of the colour. I hope that makes sense. You don't have to add colour now if you don't want to. But I'm going to do it, then it's on the recording. I just wanted a bright colour on the inside part. So I chose yellow, but you can do any colour. What I'm also going to do now is with my tipple, no, not my tipple, my shattuck, I'm going to add just a little bit of shading in this colour underneath here and along one line of my shattuck this way. And then I'm just going to, everywhere I change direction on the longest line, I'm just going to add an extra little bit of pink, or whichever colour I'm using. Just along here, along that long line, and along there. And then a very, very soft amount just up from the centre. Very, very, very soft, hardly touching. Very, very, very soft. Okay, turning my tile around to do the same at the other side. So up to the edge here, just down one side, down the other side. Don't do it, just one side. And then across the top where the lines change direction. A bit of emphasis. And then just a very, very, very light amount, lightest touch of colour just coming up from the point. So it's just spreading upwards. Tiny little touch. I am using Faber-Castell pencils and they do lay down colour nicely and quickly. Okay. There we are. This is why I'm going to go in and do something different with this Golven now. And I've got this lovely turquoise colour. It's actually cobalt green. And I'm going to add a little colour along the inside of each of these V's, just like that. But you can add the colour anywhere you want. This is just to make the overall tile look really more colourful than black and white. I'm also just going to go a little bit along this edge here. And along this one here, just a bit more emphasis. And then I'm just going to go back in and I'm just going to colour every other wave, and I'm just going to leave a little gap in the centre for a little bit of sparkle, but very, very, very lightly. This is really light touch colouring. Into a little bit of a sparkle down the middle. Give you a chance just to play with it as you wish, to make each one just that little bit different, but the overall effect when put them all together in a mosaic will, as you know, be really lovely. Okay. And again, across the top. Across the bottom. On the inside of B. And I'm just bringing those in a little bit. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to use the same coloured pencil to just add a little bit of detail around here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and add some colour on about the top part of each of my squares, down one side, and then just curve it very gently, let the colour just spread down just a little bit. And again here, just across the top, down one side, and just allow that, just very much more soft version, just very softly allow that to sprinkle down. And I'm doing it in the same position on each of them. Very, very gently soften that corner. And I'll do exactly the same on the other one. So you've just got like a little touch of this colour coming across over this side as well. Just wait for that to come into focus. So across the top or one side and down the other, pressing on fairly firmly, and then just very gently allowing that to soften across the top, down one side, and then just softening the colour. And then we're just going to add a little bit of pencil shading in the last few minutes. So I'll be taking my Zentangle pencil, which is a 2B pencil. I can't resist 2B or not 2B, but it is a 2B. It's a 2B pencil. And the first place that I'm going to start is my clock. Usually with Zentangle, we use the pencil very flat because we want to move the graphite, but I'm going to use my steam pong technique on this. And I'm actually going to go in with the point, and I'm just going to draw over these lines quite heavily. over my pen circle line here and pen circle line there, and then around the outside of my clock, but on top of the numbers. Okay, so just on the inside the inner circle. And I'm pushing that quite hard into my paper. I'm not doing it gently, pushing that quite hard into my paper. And then around the outside of my clock, so that the aura line is without any shading on it. I'm not pressing quite as hard on this one, just adding some graphite all the way around. I'm also now not pressing on as hard now, I'm just gently going to add some shading around the outside of each of these little quarter circles and into the corner where they all meet. And again here on top of the yellow up to the pen. And again here. There we go. And let's just blend that first. Now I'm not going to use this because I won't get as good an effect, but if this is all you have, then just very gently move your pencil around. I'm going to use one of these Cretacolor blending stumps, which are the ones that I like best at the moment. So what I'm going to do with this is just go around the circle on top of the pencil and do the same to the next one. And I'm going to spread this out. So once it's started moving, I'm just going to allow it to just make a bigger, softer circle. Okay, until I'm not really getting very much more. And then this one is going to come inwards. So just softening this in on top of your clock all the way around. And it just gives it a lovely dimensional feel to it, like it's a curved shape. Okay, I'm not going to do anything else. You only need to make sure that you leave a little bit of white, that your bits of shading don't actually touch each other. It only needs to be a little bit to give it that shine, and then just going gently over and just blending it away from the clock. You're on top of pencil, it will move and it will blend. Again, it depends sometimes on your paper as to how well it blends, but you get an idea of how lovely and how much dimension you can get when you add pencil on top of coloured pencil. I really like the effect. Just softening that outwards. Hopefully you're getting some nice dimension to that now. It really does look as if that curl pattern disappears underneath those little semicircles around. Okay, we're just coming up to 6:30 here, or 6:30, whatever time it is for you. I'm going to continue and finish off the shading. I hope you can stay with me, and I'll just keep going. Is that okay? Good. Okay, so I'm going back now to my my Knightsbridge, which was the semicircle. Not going to do much here, but I'm just going to add a little bit of shading, a little bit of pencil on top of the pattern there. And you'll see that also just gives it a bit of dimension and gives it a little bit of a curve feeling. I'm saying all this for people who have not done Zentangle before. Because if you have, you know what the pencil shading does, and it's just fabulous to do. So I'm going to do the same over this side. I like to keep myself fairly organized about the shading, so I remember which bits I need to do it roughly in the same, roughly, because I sometimes do forget, but roughly in the same order that I've done the drawing. Okay, if you have used pen here, you don't need to put any of the shading on top of that because it won't show. Sometimes just makes it look a bit shiny. But already that gives this a little bit of dimension here. My Shattuck, I'm going to go back and just add a little bit of shading in two places, just here and down the line. I'm not going to go anywhere else, just here and down each of those lines, just to emphasize that a little bit. And again, going in with my blender and just allowing that to come in and spread out. And it gives a dimension and adds more perspective to the whole thing. That looks really cool. Okay, I'm just going to turn it around and do it at the other side. And although you're putting pencil over the top of your colour, in somehow to me it almost emphasizes the colour more. Not sure how that is, but I really like the effect of putting pencil shading on top of colour. It was really nice in the class that I did yesterday. I had somebody who said, I always thought that I was doing this sort of thing when I went to meetings, but now I will never doodle again. I will only Zentangle in meetings. So I'm just going to add now a little bit of pencil on the inside of this little rope section, very delicately, not too much. We don't want to actually put too much pencil on, because then it can just end up looking a little bit muddy. So I'm just gently going around there, each one. Try not to put your hand on top of your drawing so that you don't smudge unintentionally what you're going to smudge intentionally. And I always try and add my pencil right up to the pen line, because that's what makes the difference and gives you the impression that it is dimensioned rather than just a bit of pencil. And all I'm going to do is just stroke that. I want to still have a sense of white at the very edge, and just stroke that around and soften that line. And it gives it a dimension without taking away the fact that it is a pattern that's called rope backwards. So it makes it look a bit like a rope. It's important to leave the little bit without any shading down the center, because that's what gives it the sense of dimension. It's like a little bit of just a bit of highlight and picks the light up. You know, sometimes I just think I should stop talking. Okay, so that's the rope just highlighted a little bit there. Going back to my Golven, I don't need to do too much to this because it's a lovely pattern, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stroke my pencil up these lines in the middle here. And then just on top of my colour, up and down the edges of the triangle. That's all. And then I'll soften that, and it just adds a little more depth to the whole pattern. I'm going to do the other one at the same time. Across these middle V lines, just along the line, just very gently adding some graphite, and then up and down each of the triangles. Just to intensify the sense of shading on those. Just gently stroke this middle line, just gives it again a little more dimension. And then just allowing that to come inside. You know the pattern, you know you can make the shading a lot more dramatic, but just at this stage, just wanting to help things stand out a little more. Okay. And then finally, did I do that one? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Finally, we have these two sections here. And what I'm going to do, where I've got the colour, I'm going to add some graphite in that section and this section. And just a tiniest little bit along that line there. So across the top where the colour is, down the side where the colour is, and then just a tiny little line on the opposite edge. Across the top where the colour is. And here, and then just a very, very little bit on top of the colour inside, only a little bit. And we can bring that in with the Braulio, with the blender when we get to it. Just blending that across, just softening that all the way around, just bringing it in a little bit on top of the colour, and then just very lightly that corner as well. It gives a dimension, makes it look like a little window you're looking into, a little, just across the colour a little bit, and just a little bit. There we go. And then turn it around and do the same along the other side. So I'm just blending those. I'm just softening, bringing it down a little bit onto the colour. Now, if you're doing some Zentangle for the first time, then I recommend that you get a blending stump like this. It's actually one that I've cut in half, but it's called Creta Colour. And they are really nice blending stumps. And if you're in the UK, you can get them from WH Smith's in packs of 3. And other places have them, like Amazon, you can get them. But you can see how nice they make blending anything. It makes a big difference. And there we are. We have finished our tile for Ron's place. Not a lot of space to actually sign it, but do try and find a little space. I think maybe in one of my Knightsbridge corners I can get my initials in here. And just stick that in there. And this is my tile done to help support the fundraising for Ron's place. And to say thank you, Ron, for giving me a little inspiration. And I really enjoyed looking around his house. I hope everybody has enjoyed doing this tile. And thank you very, very, very much for supporting me to support Ron's place. What I will do is I will stop the recording and then ask you don't leave, and we'll just have a quick look at what we've done, and hopefully before too long we can get a few of these tiles together and make a lovely mosaic. So thank you very, very much. I will stop the recording.